Hey folks, this is Kelani. As more and more info about patch 8.1 hits the public test realms, I'm beginning to think that we might see this patch sooner than we thought. I know a few chaps thought it could hit as early as this next week, which would be the week before BlizzCon, and one of the main reasons for that is a little tweet that went out a few weeks ago, which said Blizzard wouldn't really be talking about patch 8.1 at all at BlizzCon. That means they must have pretty much everything done and dusted, I guess, but that tweet has since been deleted. So whether that means they've fallen behind schedule a little bit, or just the fact that we weren't supposed to be aware of anything past 8.1 at this time, we're not too sure. Either way, a few new bits and bobs have made their way onto the PTR, so we'll have a little look through some of the more interesting stuff. It looks like the dev team might agree that vendors are a fantastic solution to the lack of player agency and the frustrations of the current reward system. Not only will we be getting the Azurite Armor Vendor, which is actually on the PTR now, so we'll give that a good look over, but there's also going to be another new vendor added for one of our other favourite types of content. Yes, it's the Island Expeditions. I know you're all very excited. A new vendor will be available for both factions, which allows you to make use of those Seafarer doubloons. A few new mounts have also been added into the game files, including 2 from the new raid, Battle of Desert Lore, which we can preview very quickly, and a few changes have been made to the story quests in patch 8.1, which actually give you a choice in some key story quests. Let's kick things off with the new Island Expeditions vendor. You should be able to find this vendor right next to the table where you actually queue up for the Island Expeditions. It's pretty much the only vendor in the immediate vicinity. Aptly named the Doubloons Trader, this vendor will offer up all manner of goodies for you to purchase, and the currency used on this vendor is of course the Seafarer's doubloons. So if you decided to spend your entire stock on those cool demolishers because you figured they would never add in a vendor for the Island Expedition only currency, well, I guess it's time to get back to it and farm up some more AP. Seafarer's doubloons. You can buy the various reputation reward items that drop from the islands, so the island flotsam, shimmering shell, etc, etc. If you buy these items, you just need to turn them into the appropriate NPC for rep with your 3 faction specific reps, or for the Tortollan. I believe each item is worth 250 reps, so you could arguably just spam Island Expeditions to farm up your reps with the factions which have items for sale, the key one here being the Tortollan probably. They're usually the most annoying rep to actually progress, but 100 Seafarers tokens is definitely a bit steep for just 250 reputation. That's going to take quite a few Island Expeditions to farm up, and we have some other more interesting rewards on offer. There's a variety of pirate hats, 1 red, 1 grey and 1 blue, which look fairly cool. If you're missing a proper pirate's hat for whatever transmog you end up running around in, Island Expeditions might have something to offer you for once. Then there's also a few pets and toys. The Crimson Octopod will set you back 100 doubloons, the Hand Anchor, which allows you to wield an anchor as a weapon, will cost you 150 doubloons, the Albino Duskwatcher is currently set at 200 doubloons, the Cranky Crab on the next page is 200 doubloons as well, and then we have a surfboard toy, which probably just works like a water walking buff, but hopefully with a little more style. That one will cost you 300 doubloons. There is a mount available on this vendor, this Saltwater Seahorse. That's the most expensive price here, currently set at 500 doubloons. At first glance, this vendor doesn't seem to have that much on offer, but at least it's better than having no vendor at all. There is the possibility that these rewards could change and rotate, just like the islands and the events on the islands rotate themselves. If that ends up being the case, then all you have to do is hold on to your pirate's treasure until the right rewards come around, and then spend, spend, spend. I hope the vendor does rotate its goods to offer up some variety, but having to wait to buy the thing you're really excited for didn't feel that great with the rotating vendor in Legion. I guess we'll have to wait and see if the vendor even changes its wares first, though. If you enjoy Island Expeditions or you want to run them for the various other rewards on offer from the random island rewards, this vendor should give you a nice little pit stop to spend those hard-earned doubloons on a few extra rewards, some of which sound like they could be pretty fun to play around with. It's not like this vendor is going to totally break the game or just offer everything up immediately or offer up a ridiculous new way to gear up, it's just a few cool rewards tagged onto a currency which previously didn't really have much going for it. I think that's a pretty cool way of solving a few issues all at once. You can now work towards very specific rewards by saving up your doubloons, something which wasn't really possible before with Island Expeditions, and it gives a little bit more incentive to actually run the islands in the first place. I know quite a few of my friends and guildies have stopped doing their weekly quest because they just can't be bothered with islands anymore. Maybe they won't feel quite as grindy or empty with a vendor in place. Speaking of vendors and how they're a brilliant fix for many of the current problems we have, let's have a look at that brand new Azurite armor vendor. Our good old friend Thaumaturge Vashreen can be found right next to the other ethereals in our service. So this vendor looks like it's going to be in the same spot as your tokens, Azurite Reforger and Transmog NPC. Whether or not that changes by the time this goes live, we have no idea, but that's where they are if you want to test things out on the PTR right now. We actually have a name for the currency too, it's going to be called Azurite Impurity. Personally, I thought Azurite coins sounded just fine, but oh well. You can collect Azurite Impurities from your weekly Mythic Plus cash, or from disenchanting or scrapping epic quality Azurite armor. The higher the item level of the Azurite armor you're scrapping, the more impurities you'll get. Sadly, I can't really test any numbers for scrapping or disenchanting, as I don't get any for disenchanting my spare gear on my copied character, so it looks like they might have actually made it so old gear won't give the new currency. The higher the Mythic Plus key you manage to complete each week, the more impurities you'll get from your weekly cash. So getting those high keys done is definitely going to be worthwhile, because buying Azurite armor from this vendor looks like it's going to be very expensive indeed. You can buy random pieces of 355 Azurite armor for 125 impurities, random 370 armor for 400 impurities, and random 385 Azurite armor for 1250 impurities. It definitely starts scaling up, doesn't it? Triple the amount required for a 385 piece when compared to a 370 piece, but that does line up with some of the info we already have. Apparently completing a plus 10 key will reward you with about 3 times the amount of impurities as completing a plus 7 key, and from a blue post we also know that you should be able to purchase an item level equivalent piece of Azurite armor in 2 to 3 weeks of completing your Mythic Plus keys. So a 385 piece would have been in your cash if you did a plus 10 key, so to get the 385 piece from a vendor, it will take 2 to 3 weeks of plus 10 keys to be able to afford it. I assume 2 to 3 weeks of plus 7 keys to buy the 370 pieces, and 2 to 3 weeks of plus 3 or plus 4 keys to buy the 355 pieces. With those very rough figures, we could expect somewhere between 500 and 600 impurities per week if we manage to get a plus 10 key done, which gives us something to work with as we look at the rest of the gear on offer here. This vendor doesn't just sell random pieces, you can also buy very specific Azurite armor pieces for a hefty premium. 3,250 impurities will allow you to buy any dungeon Azurite armor piece at item level 385. So if there's one piece that you absolutely have to have because it has the best combination of best traits or whatever it may be, using our numbers from before, it could take you 6 weeks or more doing plus 10 keys every week to be able to buy that single specific piece. Definitely something to think about. Remember that you can supplement your impurities income by collecting and scrapping other pieces of Azurite armor, which should help you work towards any Azurite goals you have set for yourself. I'm really glad that this vendor has been implemented. Not having a clear-cut goal to work towards was one of the main problems with Azurite armor, and now that we have the opportunity or choice to really go after the pieces we want, I think a lot of players will be at least a little bit happier. I am a little torn about the time investment on those specific pieces, but I guess they are mythic difficulty equivalent pieces of gear. They're more of an end goal than the first stepping stone in gearing up to. 6 weeks just seems like a really long time. Moving on, we have a few new mounts in patch 8.1, and a few mounts that have been in the game for a while now finally have a source. The coolest of these new mounts is definitely going to be the Gilded Edition GMOD, which is Gallywix's answer to Mechatalk's plot armor. Take the typical goblin mech suit that was seen in various places for BfA, slap a whole bunch of gold all over it, give the shield a wacky makeover, and voila! One wonderful mount worth raiding for. This particular mount will drop from the Battle of Desert Allure raid, presumably from Mechatalk himself. There's one other mount that comes from the raid in 8.1, the Reigns of the Armoured Sky Terror. This one comes from the Glory Meta achievement associated with the raid, so that one will be more reliably obtainable, but you are going to have to go through all manner of achievements to pick it up. If you remember back to all of the data mining before BfA came out, you might remember a handful of frog mounts. Well, those have finally been added into the game and they can be purchased from a vendor in Nazmir. Both the Horde and the Alliance should be able to buy these mounts without any troubles from Gotham da Frogman. There's 3 colours to choose from and each one will set you back 333,333 gold. That's 1 million gold for all 3. This is one greedy frogman. They do look a little daft while running, and I think I would have preferred them to simply jump longer distances but less often, like how a frog would probably move. If you have the gold to spend and you really need these to finish a collection, now you know where to get them. Now, along with the Azurite Armor Vendor and the Island Expedition Vendor, it looks like we will also see a Warfront Vendor. The main tip-off we had for this was two new mounts, the Priestess's Moonsaber and the Bloodthirsty Dreadwing. The Moonsaber looks really cool, with the Night Elf armor and the glaive on the back hip, but this mount is sadly alliance only from the look of things. It comes from a vendor called Provisioner Stoutforge, and apparently it's going to cost 1,000 7th Legion commendations. We haven't really heard much about this currency or this vendor, but the Horde will have their own honor-bound commendations too, and their own vendor in Provisioner Mukra, where they can purchase the Bloodthirsty Dreadwing for 1,000 commendations. This mount isn't quite as exciting in my opinion, but if you want another bat to ride around on, this one's for you. It looks like these vendors will be located near the Warfront effort for each faction, and they have a few other goodies on sale too. There's a Scorpion mount for each faction, a few cloak transmogs, a pet, and a 350 ring which includes a teleport to your faction hub. That one could be a good pickup for those of you who can't already teleport, but the item level probably won't stay relevant for very long. The currency itself says you'll get them from actions taken on the battlefields of Kulturas, Sandalar, and active Warfronts. So obviously you'll get a handful from Warfronts, and I guess you'll also be able to pick up a few out in the world from various activities, which will probably require you to have War Mode enabled. Keep an eye out for more info on these vendors and this currency as we get closer to patch 8.1 releasing. And to wrap things up for this video, we also have some changes to the Horde side of the story in patch 8.1. Well, not really changes to the story itself, but changes to how you can approach the situation as a Horde player. So a few spoilers ahead for the Horde storyline quests in patch 8.1, just to give you fair warning. To continue the narrative surrounding Saurfang, Sylvanas calls you back to Orgrimmar with an urgent mission. Saurfang has escaped from the Stormwind Stockade, and it's your job to track him down. After a pretty amusing series of events, you find Saurfang's trail. The Dark Ranger who is accompanying you tells you you're done for the day, and she's going to report to Sylvanas. Our good friend Zappy Boy pops out from behind a tree trunk and tells you that the Dark Ranger is lying. They're actually going forward to kill Saurfang. Previously, this questline would handhold you through siding with Saurfang, taking out the Dark Rangers and becoming a bit of a double agent, helping Saurfang but staying by Sylvanas' side. When this was first data mined, a few questions were raised about why we don't get a choice, and why would a Blood Elf or a Forsaken player character betray Sylvanas in the first place? Well, now we have a few options. You can decide to tell Zappy Boy to take a hike and report everything to Sylvanas. The quest option does say that Zekan, that Zappy Boy, will remember this action, so possibly these choices will have some interesting repercussions later on. You can also decide to stay out of the whole ordeal, head on over to one of the resorts in-game and grab a bite to eat. Who wants to deal with all this nonsense anyways? That last option isn't available right now, we only know about it thanks to data mining, but hopefully it does make it into the game for real. I think it's great that we now have a few options where before we had none, and I'm really interested to see how each option will affect the future availability of quests and interactions with various NPCs. I doubt we'll have different outcomes when all is said and done, but at least we have different journeys and different paths along the way. I don't think the Alliance will see anything similar in 8.1, but the Alliance isn't really tearing itself apart either. With both Sylvanas and Saurfang as potential leaders of the Horde, we could end up with another split down the middle, which is honestly getting a little old at this point, but apparently killing each other is what the Horde does best. So, even more vendors are being introduced in patch 8.1, hopefully PvP vendors are on the way as well, various new mounts are obtainable, and we have a little bit of choice when it comes to handling pesky story quests, or at least you will if you play on the Horde side. What do you think about almost every type of content getting its own vendor? How about the little choose your own adventure we have going on with the Horde storyline? Leave all your thoughts in the comments section below. A big thank you to all of our supporters over on Patreon. You can see their names floating by on screen. If you want to join these lovely guys and gals, you can find a link in the description below. Remember to leave a like just below the video before you leave. If you want to see more, make sure to subscribe. But apart from that, thanks for watching folks, good luck and have fun, and as always I will see you next time.